Elon Musk signals he wants DOGE to audit Fort Knox. All right. Hey, everybody. Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? Beautiful day today out here in Southern Colorado. I hear it's nice in Southern California as well. We've got Collin Plume with us, CEO of Noble Gold Investments. And I thought to myself, wow, who better to talk to today than Collin? Collin's an expert in gold and precious metals, and Fort Knox potentially could be the next audit for DOGE. I'm like, how do you pronounce that? I keep saying it wrong. I'll call it Dogie or Doggy. I mean, how do you pronounce it?
I think I've heard Doge. It depends where you're from. If you're French, you call it Doge. If you're American, you call it Doggy, I think is.
Thank you. Bonjour. Yeah. All right. Either it's the Department of Government Efficiency, and like they're on a tear right now. And when I saw the news article, so this news article from Forbes, Elon Musk eyes Fort Knox as next target. What we know about its 400 billion gold supply, auditing Fort Knox. I was like, yeah, I want to see that. I hope they live stream it. That would be amazing. But then at the same time, like, what happens if we get in there and they get audited and like the gold's gone? What
Absolutely.
would that do?
Yeah.
We're closer now than ever to auditing the Fort Knox gold vaults. Elon Musk and DOGE is not backing down. Gold prices are already reaching record levels. Banks are usurping gold by the ton. Tons of gold, literally. So look at what the big banks are doing. Now, there's obviously never any guarantees, but imagine what's going to happen if Elon Musk and DOGE audits Fort Knox and they don't find any gold. Now, if you've got a 401 or an IRA and you convert into precious metals today, find out how to qualify. They will gift you a 3-ounce American Virtue solid silver coin to add to your collection. You'll even get Silver is the New Oil, Strategies for Profiting from the Next Industrial Revolution. Author's Collin Plume. This is a best-selling book. Get it. Also, ask them about your options. There's so many options right now, and it's such a great time to get into precious metals. Don't let your 401 or IRA just sit there. Give them a call. 1-877-646-5347, noblegoldinvestments.com. Let's get back to the presentation.
Absolutely. And there has been a lot of talk. A lot of people are talking. I think in our last interview, we talked about there's been a mysterious buyer of gold overseas, and they can't trace it to, it's a large buyer, which typically the size that they're buying, the tonnage would be more aligned with a central bank, but it wasn't a central bank. And now people are thinking that potentially it's the Federal Reserve or the government doing some buying of metals because they know that this audit is going to come, and they're concerned about what would happen. Like you said, what if they open up Fort Knox and there's no gold, or there's not enough gold, or there's not the 8,400 tons that are supposed to be there. So it's been quite interesting. I think it really all started with the London Bullion Exchange not having enough gold, and then a lot of the gold from that exchange being moved to COMEX, which is basically moving from London to the US, because a lot of the traders wanted to have their gold closer to home. They wanted to get their eyes on it. They didn't feel comfortable with what's going on. There was also some concern that there'd be some tariffs that could affect their gold holdings. So they started to ship their gold to the US, and then all of a sudden the London Bullion Exchange said, wait a minute, we can't ship anymore. That's it. We're dry. You got to wait 4 to 8 weeks. And so people really started to get panicked because they thought, oh, hasn't my gold just been sitting there the whole time? I thought it was just stored in the depository. So there's been a lot of headwinds about how much gold they have, where the shortage is. And so I think that just started a whole train of thinking that, we should really know what we have. And then there was the famous X post from Elon Musk, which basically he used South Park, and it said, and we have no more gold in Fort Knox. There's a whole funny exchange happening, and it started with a zero hedge article, which basically said that they are concerned and don't believe that there's the right amount of gold in Fort Knox. Also, what people don't realize is the gold in Fort Knox, if it's the gold that was there for the last 50 years, it's actually the purity of that gold is not the same purity of gold that we use today. What happened after 1933 is they melted down a lot of the St. Gaudens coins, the coins that we used to have in circulation. Well, those coins were about around a little over 90% gold. But when they were melted down, it was still lost a little bit. And a lot of the gold in there is about 90% gold and then 10% other alloys. In today's market, that gold would not be eligible for COMEX, LBMA, because all the gold that's eligible today is 24 karat 0.999 or 3 nines or 4 nines. So those coin bars that they have, if they have them in Fort Knox, aren't even eligible for today's quality and purity. So it does present some problems because they are talking about doing this audit. And then there's more things that would happen with the audit because they're talking about changing the price of gold from when the last time they did the audit or partial audit, 1974, to today. So there's some really interesting things that could happen in the gold market. And obviously these things could affect the gold price too.
When was the last time somebody was allowed in there to count the gold? And
so they did a 5% audit in 74. They haven't done a full audit in 50 years. Someone in 1982 was able to go in there. A senator and a few other people went in there in the early 80s, but they did not do an audit. So it's been 50 years since there's been any kind of audit of that location. And when they audited partially in 1974, they valued the gold at $42.22. So actually, on our books as a government, it shows the value of $42.22. They've never revalued the gold to today's market. So the thought is that they'll revalue it to today's price or maybe higher to show that the net, that some of the assets that we have, it shows sort of what we have on the books, because obviously gold's not worth $42 an ounce anymore. So they're gonna recalibrate that price to today's price. And there has been some talk, Rex, where people have said, well, they're just gonna revalue it and then sell it. But if they look at what history has shown us over the last 25 years, there's been 2 countries that have sold their significant amount of gold. There was in 1999, Great Britain sold over 50% of their gold. So they sold their gold at about $270 an ounce. Within 2 years, gold had shot up. And then obviously since then, gold has gone up almost 15 times that value. So they made a huge mistake. And it's known as, the big UK blunder, the fact that they sold a big part of their gold. And then in 2012, Canada actually sold all of their gold. They literally sold everything. And they sold their gold at $1,200 an ounce. And then obviously today we're sitting close to $3,000 an ounce gold. So I would hope that our government doesn't follow suit and sell gold, because you'd be selling one of the only appreciable assets that we have as a government, right? So that's another interesting twist. People have been saying they're selling the gold. The other option would be setting some bonds to the gold. So doing gold bonds, which would be pretty interesting, I think, is that they could sell these gold bonds. Now, there's not a tremendous amount. You're looking at about, at today's value, between $800 billion and $1 trillion in gold, depending on where the spot price of gold is. If if they were to do a gold bond attached to it, I think it would be pretty exciting because they could offer a rate that's higher than other things. Because gold is appreciated at least 8% every year. So maybe they could offer like a 5% note backed by gold, which I think people would be really excited about. And then what it may do, and I hope this would do, is that it would move people from buying the 10-year, which the 10 years continue to go up. Maybe people start to buy some of this gold bonds and some of this that we're doing. There's less buying of the 10-year. The 10-year drops in value. And if the 10-year could drop 100 or 200 basis points, then our 30-year mortgage rates would drop, which means that would help our real estate market. So I don't know if you find that you kind of follow that line of thinking, but in essence, if they turn it into a gold bond, that could be great for us as a country, because then we could start selling those bonds, move away from, the 10-year treasury, and hopefully that treasury drops. Because really, one of the things that could really stimulate this economy would be a nice pullback in interest rates, which would allow more buyers into the market, and it would help the commercial market. It would help kind of all the different markets that we need at this point. So
absolutely. And I'm reading through the reports and some of the information suggesting that gold could actually hit $5,000 by 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's pretty interesting. I was speaking to an insider, someone that has a connection to the Trump administration, and they were saying, the interesting thing about what's been happening is that at the inauguration, in a lot of the events after the inauguration, they have all those parties. Trump and his administration, they were talking about gold, the golden age. Everything is about gold. They've been really pushing gold. And since then, he really hasn't mentioned gold really once. Musk has talked about doing this audit. And I think it's very telling, because if they're going to create the strategic wealth fund and they're going to revalue gold, it's going to show that gold is a significant asset in the marketplace. And this audit, whether we have the gold or not, is going to make gold an important asset in today's economy. Scott Bessent, who's running this department, he's a hedge fund person. He's very wealthy, worth a few $100 million. He's a big gold bug. I mean, he's been talking about gold for a long time. And if President Trump is thinking in the way of Ronald Reagan was also a big gold bug and actually wanted to go back on the gold standard in 1984. There was lots of discussions about him going back on the gold standard, which he didn't end up doing. He got a lot of pressure from his cabinet. But ultimately, there's, I think DOGE and this new way of thinking, this transparency, they're really thinking about the dollar, strengthening the dollar. And the thing that would strengthen the dollar the most would be going back at least partially to a gold-backed system. Now, if we backed all the dollars in the world, we back them all by gold, to a 40% number. So 40% of our dollars, which I think would be in this market, probably the most realistic way to look at it. I don't think we could back every dollar by gold. There's just not enough gold out there. If we went to a 40% backing of gold in today's environment, the price of gold would be sitting around $27,000 or $28,000 an ounce if we based it on today. So if we backed 40% of every dollar. So that's why you're seeing these projections coming out from reputable sources. I mean, this is Goldman Sachs, Yardini Research. I mean, these are big organizations saying $3,100 to $5,000 an ounce in 2026. That's a big jump from where we are today. And a lot of it is based on the fact that they do believe that gold is going to be used in some form in this new government as a way to strengthen our currency.
Now, what about other precious metals like silver? Would that be included?
Silver would just absolutely follow suit. It has been following suit. The ratio of gold to silver is, still close to 90 to 1, which is relatively high historically. Yeah, so silver is something that people are talking about, and then also with the tariffs, with Mexico especially, 80% of our silver in the U.S. comes from Mexico. So there's been this talk of, if they put a tariff on silver, where the price of silver would go. If we're getting the majority of our silver, only 15 or 16% of the silver we use in this country is actually mined here in the U.S. So we do import a significant amount of it. So these are all things that are in discussion. But yeah, I mean, silver I think would play an important part of where the metal price is going, and it really goes in line with what President Trump's really been talking about is, getting our country stronger, getting our dollar stronger. Some of his conversations with the Ukraine is us getting some essential metals in the negotiation. So strategically, gold and silver will play a big part in this new idea of what makes us strong as a country. And I think in terms of transparency, them doing an audit is a very likely scenario. Now, I will tell you, if they do not do an audit, that is a surefire sign to the market that they do not have enough gold. Because at this point, I think there's enough momentum. The U.S. Americans have said they want to see an audit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I hope they do it. They put some, concerns to rest, but if they don't move forward, I think they're basically sending a signal out there that we have either sold the gold or we don't have enough gold.
Right. And I mean, the only other excuse I could think of that they could use would be something along the lines of, for security reasons, we can't show you what it looks like down here in case, right? I mean, that's what else would there be?
Yeah, it's a very secure facility. There shouldn't be any reason why they wouldn't be able to run an audit there. And, for someone that's been in the gold business for 16 years, I've seen plenty of audits at the depositories that we use. The depository we use, which is a segregated depository called IDS, I mean, they do an audit once a month. They don't do every part of the repository, but they section off each part. And by the time they end each quarter, they've done an audit of their whole depository because that's what their insurance company requires. So it is feasible. It is possible. You just have to put a system in place. And but I've been there. They open up all the packages, they count the ounces, they repackage it, they put an initial on it, and they go through every shelf. And they do it all the way through. And that's how you do it. And at some point with a physical item like gold and silver, that's what you got to do. You really got to do the physical work to audit it. And that gives our clients peace of mind. I mean, that's why we use that depository, because we know that every ounce is accounted for there, which is the most important thing. Especially, listen, you're doing your IRA, you want to make sure it's there. So you have this physical audit that makes sure that your metals are there. And then obviously with what's happening right now, where clients are retiring, a lot of them are taking possession at retirement. So they're having their gold or silver sent to their doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about, okay, so with the tariffs, with these executive orders and a influx of government employee layoffs, what is that going to do to the market? Do you see a recession? I know a lot of people are talking recession in 12 months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think what it is that, an indicator of recession would be unemployment rising. And I don't see how there's any way that unemployment doesn't rise in this environment. I think that you're looking at a lot of jobs that were unnecessary. A lot of them were government jobs. A lot of them, we're finding out were people that were not working. So yeah, I mean, if you really dissect our employment in this country, you're looking at pretty close to 40% is some association with some kind of government, whether it's federal or state. And so, yeah, you're going to see, if they continue the layoffs the way that they are, you're going to see unemployment rise. And long term, it's good, right? It's better for us. But yeah, it'll start to show some cracks in the unemployment numbers. And then I think we're starting to see inflation start to creep up again here. It's not slowing down. I think the idea that it's going to get back to 2% was a fantasy. And as much as all of these things that we're doing are going to be great, I just don't know if it's going to be enough to really, we're still $36 trillion in debt. We have a massive, massive bubble of unfunded liabilities, including Social Security, including Medicare, including Medicaid. I mean, these are all things that have just ballooned and skyrocketed. I mean, health insurance has gone up more than 10% for the last 8 years in a row. So I just don't know if we're going to be able to catch up quick enough to avoid, a potential collapse. Because we are, in my opinion, in a recession. It's if you ask most people now, they're having a hard time paying for the increase in food, paying for the increases. Oil costs, gasoline prices are up again. So I think we're in it right now. I mean, look at eggs. The price of eggs has just skyrocketed. Orange juice. I was reading a story about Florida orange juice, and there's no more Florida orange juice because it's been destroyed by disease. And now most of the orange juice in this country, not only has orange juice got more than tripled in price over the last 5 years, but most of it's not even they're not from oranges here in Florida. That whole Florida dream, if you really look at the labels, it may say Florida, but it's going to say on their other locations too. And they're saying that maybe 10% of that Florida orange juice is actually made here in Florida. And most of it's made or produced all over the country, all over the world, excuse me. So there's these things happening like below the surface that people aren't really conscious of. And I think, these government statistics of like 4% unemployment and 3% CPI, I think those numbers are wildly under the actual numbers of what people of the people that I'm talking to and the things that I'm seeing out there happening today.
You've been in real estate and commercial real estate for years.
Yeah.
And so what do you see going on right now in those markets?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing a real issue in terms of, vacancy is a significant issue, but the debt bubble is really it's enormous. You're seeing the amount of debt that's going to come due this year, and what the banks are going to be able to do is quite scary. I talk to people that are in the space that own buildings, and a lot of them don't see any relief in sight. I mean, it's been 3 years of a lot of pain. It's been very difficult to conduct business in a lot of these different places all over the United States. And now we're running into a position where the debt is so expensive still that they don't know if they're going to be able to refinance or cover the increase. You have insurance costs on these buildings that have skyrocketed. So everything in terms of running real estate has gone up, but rents haven't gone up. Vacancy's gone up, unfortunately. So how does an owner survive in that kind of environment? And I think what's happening right now is a lot of buildings are just going back to the banks, and we're going to continue to see that happen. So yeah, real estate is a very, very tough market. January was the lowest amount of transactions in real estate than they've seen in almost 40 years on the residential side. So it's been a very difficult market and a very difficult investment for people. I have a very close friend who owns apartment buildings and just said he doesn't know if he'll ever. This is someone that's been in the business for 20 years, been buying and holding and buying and holding, and it was kind of the American dream, how to build wealth. And he said he's done buying. He doesn't. It's too difficult with tenants. There's too many laws against him. And it's just not a great environment to owning real estate. And these are veterans of the space. So it's been a very difficult sector. I think it will continue to be difficult. I think that you'd have to see some massive government overhaul of allowing landlords to actually own property in an environment where they can protect themselves. And also rates need to come down, probably 20 or 30% for them to be able to afford to cover the costs of the day-to-day building. So I think we're going to see a ton of vacancy this year. And I think we're going to see a number of banks, mid-level banks have a lot of problems. And there's a number of them that are sort of teetering now. Maybe some of the bigger banks buy them, but ultimately there's a lot of these mid-level banks, credit unions that are going to have a lot of issues this year, credit issues, and it's going to be difficult for them to survive.
Is that why the Federal Reserve is putting together a banking system risk analysis?
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to want to know the results of that analysis. It's like, don't ask a question you don't want the answer to. I think, they do these stress tests of banks and they do them routinely, and they want to see a certain number of reserves. They want to see a certain number of loans that are being paid consistently. And I think that they're gonna run into an issue where they're going to find that a lot of the banks are a few months away from the Fed having to come in and bail them out. So yeah, you could do the stress test, but I don't think you want to do them right now, because a lot of the banks are just pushing loan renewals that they're supposed to get in-house and renew. They're just pushing them a year or 2 years down the line. They're doing the extend and pretend strategy. So it's real estate fundamentals are a difficult situation. We're not seeing a lot of active acquirers of real estate. Most people are just sort of trying to survive on what they have.
First thing that comes to your mind, like what goes on, what's going to happen to the mindset of most Americans if Elon Musk uncovers that there's hardly any gold, or it's all gone, or even half of it's gone? I mean, that's going to have a huge impact on the psyche of people, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you're looking at a situation where gold shoots to $4,000 an ounce, absolutely, minimum. And I think it would shake up a lot of our financial system, to know that we've always thought we were this very strong, independent country that had some of these reserves in place, and to know that we don't have it, that would be, I think that would send shockwaves through the financial markets. I think it would be quite scary. In terms of the dollar, it would be unbelievable for gold. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, maybe I'm even being conservative in the $4,000 an ounce number. But yeah, it could. And I think a lot of people are bracing themselves. I mean, the fact that Elon Musk, who has more data probably than most of us, is sending that, on X, saying, what if there's no gold? What if he's setting us up? He knows that's the case and he's setting us up. I don't know, but I think people are concerned. I think people in the government are quite concerned. And that's why they haven't done an audit probably for the past 50 years.
Man, we live in amazing times, and we've got extreme weather. We've got major conflict overseas, and it's knocking on the doors here. And the real estate markets in turmoil, it appears, and people are, wow, we need some good news.
I agree. I wish I could be the one to bring it. I mean, I guess the good news is that they're finding out all of these problems. And I think that would be my good news, is that I think that everybody that runs their household the way they should, you always want to know what the problems are that you have. You always want to know what debts you have. You always want to know all of these things. And it seems like we're finally peeling back the onion to figure out, what is actually there, and also find out what we're paying for and where our money has been going. So I in some ways, I think it's exciting, and it really is a fundamental crypto idea. This put it all on the blockchain, right? I mean, this is really a new phenomenon that was created by this crypto phenomenon, is like make everything transparent. And I think that's the exciting thing about what's happening, is we're finally going to get to see where a lot of our money is going to. We're going to see what problems we really have, and hopefully have an idea. It's been too long where they've tried to hide so many of the problems we have, and we didn't know where money was going. And you had these organizations that were able to determine where funds should go. And I think overall, Americans should be able to know where their money is going. So I think the positive, we're getting some more transparency. But I do think we're still in the midst of a lot of pain, still in the midst of a lot of inflation, and there's a big change happening. It's a big cultural, a big physical change. The U.S. is going through something that we've never gone through, and we need to do it, because if you think about it, us doing this audit is really a sign that, hey, we're pretty broke. Like, we got to see what assets we have, right? I mean, this is like an estate sale. Like, what do we have left? Okay, we might need to borrow against it. We might need to do something with it. How much we got left here to pay for the mortgage, kind of thing. So it's an unusual time, but I'm hoping it'll turn things a lot better. In the same regard, there's going to be some massive winners in this market, and I think commodities are just, every indicator out there is that commodities are going to do great, and it's going to be an amazing time for we're in a bull market for commodities. Absolutely.
Okay. And like the crypto situation and Brics, do you have any updates on Brics?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the President Trump's really pushed back on the idea of Brics creating their own currency, because he knows it would hurt the dollar. And so I think that the Brics nations have been a little bit quiet in terms of what they're trying to create. I think they still want to back some of their new currency with gold. I think it's on the table for them. It makes a lot of sense. So we're in this tug of war, I think, with the world about what currency is going to be the strongest. And this is, I mean, if you go back thousands of years, currency, commodities, these are the things that change the world. Debts. I mean, you see it over and over. Rome, all these places, they get fat and happy, and they go into tremendous debt, and then they collapse. And you can name all these different civilizations. I actually go through a lot of it. I have a whole chart in my book where I talk about all these civilizations that became dominant and then overspent, and then had their currency devalued. And then there was a change, and there was a new country that came in, and a new regime that came in. And I think we're in that position. We're trying to stop that from happening. But if we don't get our spending under control, if we don't find a stopgap here, we could fall suit like many of these other powerful nations of the world, and run into a position where somebody else would take over. And I think that's what China is waiting for. They're hoping we continue to spend. They're hoping that we continue to blow up our economy, and then they can come in and be the dominant country of the world.
Yeah, they're very advanced as far as the news is presenting. A lot of the artificial intelligence, the humanoid robots, the 6th-gen warfighter, or the stealth fighter they've got. Although Japan did an article on their 6th-gen warfighter, and they said, no, that's not a 6th generation. I don't know, man. It looks pretty cool to me. It's supposed to have some plasma cannon. I don't want a plasma cannon 6th-gen jet flying over my house.
No.
Oh, there he is. We have a plasma cannon. Wow, man. It's exciting. I'm excited. I'm equally excited as I am, fascinated and frightened. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's like for every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So folks, just take advantage of that opportunity. Don't hide in a corner. Let's get out and use our tech and just learn and be as efficient as possible and be the change we want to see. So if I was to give you a call, let's say I'm calling you up, I'm converting my 401 or IRA today, and I'm like, you know what? I need to get into gold. I need to get into silver. Do you have any specials? Like, do you have any coins that you're offering?
We have some amazing specials going on in gold and silver. You can also get our book, Silver is the New Oil, my new book. There's a lot of things happening. The price of gold and silver, the physical form, is the best price since I've been in the business. Premiums are as low as they've ever been. So you can pick up a lot of gold and silver at a phenomenal price. And silver is still below its all-time high price. So for people out there to say, oh, gold's too expensive. I still disagree. I still think gold's got a lot of room and you should always own gold. But I would say that silver is an amazing price right now. And, for people that know us, we've sold over $2 billion in gold and silver. We really focus on bullion, coins, and bars, and we focus on long-term relationships. So anyone that has an old 401k or IRA, give us a call. Talk to our people. You're going to like the people you talk to, and learn about what we do. In terms of getting prepared with precious metals. Learn the different ways you can do it. I think that you'd be surprised today that you can own a physical item on your own, and then just learning about comparing our fees to like a traditional 401k with mutual funds. There's a lot of savings there over the long term of getting into a physical metal. So even though you're buying a physical metal, it has to be stored and insured. If you compare us to mutual funds and some annuities, in the grand scheme of things, you can save a lot of money coming into this investment vehicle. So, I would just say give us a call and learn and talk to somebody live and get information.
Okay, yeah, and also, folks, do yourselves a favor: subscribe to Noble Gold Investments, and that way you'll get access to the latest podcast from Collin and Noble Gold. Just make sure that you hit the bell for all notifications and pick up your copy of Silver is the New Oil: Strategies for Profiting from the Next Industrial Revolution. Collin, it's always great to talk to you, man. You bring a little bit of happiness to my day sometimes when I need it. Good. So thank you very much, because today was one of those days, and I really appreciate you. And any other words of wisdom you can share with us before we finish? No,
it's exciting. Get good information from us. Good time to learn. And Rex, as always, thanks for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Right on. Talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Be the change you want to see.